Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Roll for Initiative.
The Roll for Initiative podcast, issue number 39. I'm one of your hosts, DM Vincent, along with DM Jason.
Hello.
DM Nick.
Howdy.
And joining us by popular demand among the forums, DM Mike from the Save or Die podcast as part of the crossover podcast we'll be doing for promotion reason-wise. Mike, holla.
Word.
So we're 30 issues in now, and we're getting
39.
old. I'm sorry, 39 issues, yeah. Look, see that's how old we are. I can't remember how many issues we got going. When did we become volume 2 in the issues? When we reboot or something? Or
I wish I knew how that worked.
yeah, I never knew how that worked.
Usually, I thought it.
Usually, it
when
was
it comes
year
another
to year.
volume. Yeah, after a year.
So then we're on volume 2 now. Because this is a new year, isn't it? So volume 2, issue number 39. Sounds good. So what did anybody do any gaming this week? I know Mike did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Elaborate,
Fascinating.
Mike.
I see why we brought you on. Thank you. But no. Tell the story again.
Yes, fountain of knowledge.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,
I love that ending, don't you?
Yeah, that's
great.
awesome.
Yeah, no, I played in some of the actual play of Vince's game on Thursday. Friday, I ran my own first edition game
Woo!
via Skype. And Saturday, I went to a second edition game.
Boo. I mean, aw.
Oh, well, that's nice.
That's wonderful.
Super.
And Jason, what about you?
well, let's see. A couple of big events that happened for me. One of them was, the one that's coming up, I'm going to be starting playing in a Rogue Trader game, so I'm looking forward to that.
Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's going to be a ton of fun. I've never played it before. But the big gaming event that happened for me otherwise was that Ethan Gilsdorf, the author of Fantasy Freaks and Gaming Geeks, was doing a reading over at a bookstore in Brooklyn. And I don't know which one it was because I don't have it here. But anyways, I went over to that, and it was really fun. There was also another author there reading his book, I Was a Teenage Wookiee, I think, or something like that.
I want to read that.
All about Star Wars and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it was really fun. He was, at the reading, he was giving out D20s. and minis for everybody who came. So I've got like a ton of D20s now. And then we all went out afterwards, went drinking a bit. And another guy came out who was the head of the Tolkien Society in New England.
Wow.
And, really fun conversation. We're going to have Ethan on the show soon. And
great.
Good.
Let him talk all about it. I'm about halfway through his book right now, and it is amazing. I didn't know what to expect. His book is it's a very personal narrative. It's a lot about how he grew up and why he was gaming as a kid and how he got back into it and his kind of journey of both self-discovery and traveling the world to meet other geeks and just try to understand what the whole phenomenon is about from everybody's individual perspectives.
So it's a little bit of like nostalgia, recalling things, but a little bit of what's going on today.
Yeah, it's like a coming of age story. It's a introspection. It's a road story, and it's all centered around fantasy gaming and novels and literature and a lot of D&D stuff. I'm just at the point right now where he was traveling to Lake Geneva to meet Gary Gygax for the first time, and sadly arrived right after his passing. And it's a tough chapter to read. It's really touching. Yeah. So it's a great book. He's an amazing author, so I can't wait to have him on, and that was a lot of fun to meet him.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it myself.
What about it was done in a positive point of view, right? I can't talk about the number of books that tend to talk about, an author talks about his gaming past, and it's always done in kind of a
tongue-in-cheek kind of fashion.
Yeah, or, boy, I was such a geek then.
Yeah, sarcasm.
And it's just... It's irritating.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it was in the book or if it was just during his talk that he was specifically kind of talking about his problem with people that write those kind of books for the same exact reason you just said.
Yeah.
It's really good. He's really examining, what was it that really spoke to him personally about it, and his rediscovery of his love of the game and of the genre and the literature, and it's a very positive thing. I mean, the hardest thing about it for me in reading this book is that every few pages I wanted to stop and make notes for my own darn book. It makes you want to write your own. It's great.
Cool.
Yes, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. Are we going to get the Teenage Woogie book too, or no?
It didn't come in the mail with the Fantasy Freaks and Gaming Geeks, but he did a bit of a reading. It's pretty cool, but it's really just about Star Wars. So I actually think what he ought to be doing is we should point him over at the Order 66.
Yeah, well, those
they
guys
should really talk.
Definitely. Which is a wonderful podcast, part of the D20 Radio Network, which sponsors our show.
Yes.
Go check them out at d20radio.com. So, Nick, what have you been doing in gaming?
Oh, I burned all my gaming books.
All right, Nick.
Not really
me.
much. Not really much this week, honestly. Just doing a little more work on the new campaign I think I talked about last time when we had our last get-together. But I think we're going to have our next meeting maybe before Christmas. I'm not sure. Generally, December is a really iffy month for us getting together. So we'll try to squeeze in one game session there. If not, we'll wait until after New Year's and we'll get in there. We'll start the new campaign then. I'm really excited about it. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very adamant about journaling everything. So
epic words.
Once it starts off, I'll have it online and I'll journal their progress as the campaign goes through.
Nice. Epicwords.com.
Exactly, on epicwords.com, you betcha.
Wonderful site for that. Mm-hmm. And as far as I'm gaming-wise, the Actual Play podcast, which I did last Thursday, or would be a week ago, depending when this goes out, where I almost wiped out the whole entire party with with pumpkin-headed satyrs that explode.
Pumpkin-headed satyrs?
It was my own invention of monster. They hated it.
Nice.
And their leader, the Great Pumpkin.
Well, that's what you guys call the leader, the Great Pumpkin, but it was a big giant pumpkin.
I'm guessing he didn't leave presents for all the good girls and boys.
No, he exploded and paralyzed the whole party at one point.
Nice.
It was my own invention monster that I had just cooked up that day.
Excellent.
And I played in the Saturday Night Gaming community group that is on our forums with Drama Man. And he continued his quest with Goblins All the Silver We Can Find, I think it's called, that module he was doing. It's pretty good. We had fun. Some people didn't show up, but, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you snooze, you lose.
Yeah, it's every Saturday from 7 to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time on Skype.
And that's a Skype game, right? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
On Skype.
I might pop in and try that.
Yeah, there's no commitment. You can come and go as you want, he said, because he'll NPC the other characters.
Okay. You just bring, first-level characters in, or what?
No. He has all pre-gens for you. You just show up, he says, here's your character. He sends it over in a little text file, and then that's it.
Ah, cool. Yeah, I might try that out over the holidays. Who knows?
It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
All right, so, Nick, you're up. You're up with some stars.
Yeah, we got some people that just this past week got 3 people that gave us a couple of 5-star reviews and a 4-star review, and would like to thank Robert Bowers and Man Shoot the Mage, interesting name.
Man Shoot the Mage.
And Sogboyge. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but want to thank you folks for sending in listening to us on iTunes and giving us some feedback. Really appreciate it. And any feedback that we get back on iTunes or on the website or any place, we greatly appreciate, because without you folks listening, you give us a lot of good ideas, and we try to do the best we can to bring those out in our show. So again, thank you, everybody.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for your reviews. Jason, we have some new articles up, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I just want to make a reminder of one of the articles that's up there, which is actually just the article with our special insert that we did last week in lieu of a show. And that's the DM challenge. So I won't repeat what the challenge is. You can go. Anybody who's listening can go back and listen to it. And we've had a couple of people call in already with some good answers. So basically, go there. We've set up a scenario and asked people, how would you referee the situation? And we're going to pick the best one, or our favorite, or whatever we pick, and play it on the air. So.
Yeah, I'll even sweeten the pot a little bit that the winner gets to get his own custom title in the forums, which we can do.
We can give away 1,000 Electrum pieces, too.
That's good. Well, you've got the Electrum pieces. You send them over.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have. I'm all out.
And that's Gary Gygax's favorite type of coinage, you know.
Nice.
And if you want to call in, the reminder, the number 570-865-4210, the RFI hotline, right, Nick?
Hotline.
Okay.
And the other article that we've got up is the latest +2 to save from Todd Hughes, and this one is very appropriate for this week's some of the stuff we're talking about this week. It's called Somebody Save Me, and in it he's talking about the idea of how do you handle situations that aren't covered in the rules, basically. You know, what do you do when you come up with something, for example, he gives an example of somebody who's paralyzed with fear by something horrifying that they're seeing. Do you save versus horror? You know, and he starts talking a little bit about things like the non-weapon proficiencies that showed up in the Wilderness Survival Guide, and you know what he thinks of that. And I'll let you read to see what he thinks of that. Cool. So it's a really good article. It's just happens to fit very well in with our DM challenge and with some of what we're talking about later today. Cool. And then also, I just want to point out. I've mentioned before that Todd has a new module coming out. He still does, and the only reason it's not out is me. I'm the one that's making it late. So, yeah, I keep miscounting the number of hours in a day, and
23.
This is.
Oh, sorry.
I thought it was 48.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to send our OTUG after you.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, it's a really good module, and I'm privileged to have read it ahead of everybody because I'm sitting here editing it. But it's awesome, and I can't wait to release that soon, I swear.
And that's going to be a special download for the people who have the iPhone app, right?
Yeah, we'll have a PDF just for them. I mean, we're talking about how we might make it available in print and all those kind of things. I'll let you know when we know more.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. And, oh yeah, there's an article on the Deck of Many Dooms. I think that's by Buzz, PC Buzz.
Yeah, didn't we talk about that last time? And it was up before.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that article was up for the last show. But it's a great article, so people should go and leave a few comments on it. Let them know what you think.
Not a problem.
We have a plethora of articles.
Yes. That's how many I counted anyways, one plethora.
One plethora.
What exactly is a plethora? No, I'm kidding.
Hey. It's a family show.
Yeah, I know.
I had plethora once, got a shot, cleared it right up.
Mike. All right. So let's head over to Sage Advice.
Sage Advice.
Okay, welcome to Sage Advice. So, of course, if you have any Sage Advice that you'd like to ask, you can always give us a call on our hotline. And that number is 5708-6542-10. All right, so let's start out.
Didn't sing.
I know. All right, Sage Advice.
Yeah, Sage Advice. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, where's the part where I edit things out on the fly?
No.
The first thing that we've got in the Sage Advice is always our favorite way to be reached. We've got a letter.
No, he means a real letter.
Mail.
Snail mail.
It came by airmail, actually.
Snail mail?
It came by carrier pigeon.
With a Garfield and Odie stamp, so beat that.
Aww.
That's awesome.
However, this mysterious writer with the Garfield and Odie stamp has no return address and goes by a pseudonym. I hope. All right, so I'm going to read this. First of all, it's on a huge piece of tabloid-sized graph paper, and on the back there is a map with a set of numbered rooms, with 11 numbered rooms. Very mysterious because we don't know what is in those rooms, and there is an awful lot of pit traps on it.
Nice.
I don't see any hidden writing, so I'll just read what is visible.
Okay.
Good day, sirs of RFI. I hope to appear quiet and sly. By writing in secret in colored pen, hoping 'twill reach your soundproof den. 'Twill. GFS is my name, a question I ask to players of this fine game. The men of AD&D are plentiful in power and fame, but answer me this. Is racism present against elves or dwarfs? Do men fear, as in medieval times, that which was stronger? Are other races evil to men's eyes? Perhaps my meaning is not clear. An elf walks into a tavern within a small human village. Will the elf be whispered about in corners and feared, or ignored just like another human there? I ask this for your opinions, and thank you for your time. Grothus Fearsome Shadow.
The Shadow?
Different shadow. This is not the Shadow who wrote in from before, unless he's moving around the country, changing his handwriting and things like that.
Maybe he's writing
Other Shadow.
The other Shadow?
I think it's a Shadow clan.
Yeah, maybe.
There could be a rival Shadow faction.
Could be. Like a ninja faction, yeah.
So he's got a good question. He or she, actually. Yeah, it could be a she, Garotha. Would humans be racist against elves, dwarves, and other types of folks in the game? Are they going to just treat them like other humans, or is there going to be problems? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, if you're going by the book, yeah, there are some racial hatreds in the book, but I don't know anyone really that plays with them anymore. Do you play with them?
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. You've got the racial preferences table, and I've definitely gone to it when it comes to rolling up, in an encounter, and somebody's trying to convince the other party that they're dealing with to do something. I'll add in a little bit of a role. I think you got to take it on a country. I think if you're building a whole campaign world, you can have it be different in different places, right?
Well, yeah, if you're going to have a whole human-based, humocentric campaign.
Humanocentric,
yeah. Humanocentric campaign, you're going to want to, definitely, like when an elf walks into a town, people will be like, sorry, look at that guy over there. Look at that Nick.
Hey, I don't have pointy ears.
Oh, I'm sorry. People are going to whisper.
Too heavy to be an elf.
Definitely, that's what I would do. Mike, what about you?
I'd say it's a campaign issue. I mean, the tables in the DMG, that's kind of... I would take that as for baseline D&D, which I would consider Greyhawk. But, I mean, it would really depend on the campaign world.
Yeah.
I mean, in my campaign world, I try to play that, but actually half-elves get more grief than elves do. And, again, I see that as a role-playing issue to try to off-balance the racial advantages of some of the demi-humans. It's like, okay, you can do that, but... unless you're in your race's area, expect to get the hairy eyeball.
I like the idea of the half races, the half elves and the half orcs. Being in a situation where they're being kind of shunned by both groups, and so you end up getting these rangers coming out of there. Getting loners. Obviously, not ranger half orcs, but you get real loner types, and it can add a lot to the way that you role play that character if you're doing it as a PC.
Yeah. That's how I play it too. I mean, I guess I borrow a little bit, at least from my own knowledge of like reading Tolkien, how there's always been some friction between the dwarves and elves, and the humans are kind of seen as an upstart kind of young race. They're the youngins, and
I always kind of wondered about that.
Yeah,
I
do.
Well, dwarves and elves hate each other, yet one of the big things that causes groups of people to dislike each other is competition for resources.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And dwarves and elves really don't compete for the same resources.
If I remember correctly, it was more about an alliance they had in the past, but I do play up a little bit on the difference, the dwarves and elves and how they just kind of don't get along just because of how their attitudes in general about their races don't tend to mix very well. Halflings, I don't know. Halflings are just kind of there, but I mean.
The two sources that I kind of automatically go to in my head when I'm thinking about different species or races or whatever in a fantasy game are the Terry Pratchett Discworld series and Star Trek. Because they're both really good models for it, because in both cases you don't have a single standard way. I mean, Star Trek, you've got lots of great examples of, if you just want to think about how to role play when something's going on, throw some Ferengi and some Klingons in a room and, just replace, put those in your head while you're thinking about it. And you can, if you're lazy, just pull out lines from a show or something. But what I really like is in the Discworld, do any of you guys read those books?
I haven't in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay,
no.
so they've got like Uberwald, where all of the undead and the werewolves and the vampires and everything come from, and you've got the where the dwarves come from in the mountains, and you go to those places, and if you're in those kind of old country places, you run into a lot of xenophobia and they don't get along well with the outsiders. But then you go into a city like Ankh-Morpork, and you've got some racial tensions that come up, but then you also have these situations like the like the Night Watch, where you've got trolls and not orcs. There's no orcs in it, but you've got trolls and dwarves and humans and everything else, and they just kind of have to get along.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not as much fun when they're getting along if you don't have some of the old country where they're still fighting. So that makes it kind of more fun to me.
And I think what. Like you're talking about, like half elves and half orcs. I think everybody does kind of play those races as they're somewhere in between. They don't belong to any one particular place, so they're on the fringe. And like half elves, it seems like so many people play half elf rangers or a half orc,
like halfling thieves.
They're on the fringes, and that's the best way they can go around in the world, in the larger world, I guess, how they found their niche.
I mean, you've obviously
a good rationale.
Yeah.
You've obviously got to come up with some rationale for why a adventuring party might have all these different races in it. So you can't just have them in constant animosity.
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, for the greater good of the adventuring party, they put their differences aside. I mean, it's like, well, I give you a real world example. It's like being in a platoon of guys in the Army. I know all these different guys of different backgrounds and different races too, and you all have to learn to live together, and you all have to work together, and everybody has to survive together.
Yeah, but the military is the structure that holds them together. It's a lot harder than an adventuring party.
That's true. Because
I think at the adventuring party, you have necessarily unique characters. They're not going to be average or normal. So add that into the mix. If you're in a world where dwarves are treated particularly bad, maybe this is the one dwarf and this is the one elf that said, "Forget that. We're hanging out."
Yeah, you could have that. Absolutely.
The Gimli Legolas kind of thing.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we beat that one. So let's go to the next.
What's the address, Jason, so someone else could write in?
What's that? Oh, and there's an address.
The physical address.
You can write to Roll for Initiative, 200 East 10th Street, number 511, New York, 10003.
Yes, and don't go to that address because you really won't find anything but a box.
Exploding box.
Exploding box, that's correct. With Jason was a switch laughing.
Exploding runes.
Yes, I prepared explosive runes this morning.
Nice.
My favorite Order of the Sick joke.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I got one more here, and that is from Philip T. This is an email, and he asks, Monster Manual 2 makes mention of the plane of time. What is this? This is the only reference I've ever seen to it. Any ideas? I'm interested in hearing more on this. Me too.
I tell.
I looked all through the manual of the planes, and I couldn't find anything there. I might have overlooked it. How would that even work? What would a plane of time be, you guys?
I imagine a completely flat, featureless plane, and everything is on a, looks like it's all gridded. I don't know why. I picture like a giant grid paper.
Have you been getting ready for Tron or something?
Yeah.
No.
Tron 2
Yeah, but I want to see the new film.
Yeah.
I don't know. Plane of Time? I don't know. Tom Baker hangs out there in his TARDIS? What?
Doctor Who reference!
There is a Time Lord. There is a Time Lord in issue number 65 of Dragon Magazine.
Aha.
That is an NPC class that somebody wrote up. So
there you go, Vince.
Shut up, Mike.
What were we betting on? No Doctor Who references?
They keep hitting me with Doctor Who references on Save or Die all the time and torture me with it. So, yeah.
What a coinky dink.
Well, I mean, if I'm trying to envision the plane of time, it would be one in where obviously we're talking about time as a dimension, something you can move through. So you'd have to have a plane where the three physical dimensions are somehow have that additional dimension. So you, I guess, maybe hold them still, and you'd be moving back and forth through. Think of it as like sort of a big tunnel. That you'd be moving back and forth through within there. But I can't even begin to imagine how to role play that. And I got
a good example.
I'm not.
I got a good example.
If my players tried to go there, I'd come up with some way that it doesn't work.
Remember Star Trek Generations when they had the Nexus?
No, I never saw that.
Oh, okay. Well, it was kind of like this thing that you can go into. You can go to any period or time of your life just by thinking about it. And you.
Oh,
the whole Nexus situation
on Star Trek Generations.
Yeah, the movie, the Nexus. It was called.
Yeah.
It was like a
they
plane
sort of killed Kirk.
Yeah, oh my god, and he died.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could pretty much go wherever you want, anytime, no matter what, just by thinking about it. So maybe
that would be trippy.
Yeah.
Maybe you could use the plane of time as some sort of stand-in for how time travel works in the game. Just say that's where you go through when the time travel occurs. Physical things stand still except for when you're moving through time. So it's kind of like rewinding. You're running the little scrub knob on an editing deck, on a video editing deck. Maybe do it like that.
Yeah,
that's funny because you're mentioning like traveling through time. I don't know. I remember in that book, the Manual of the Planes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you look up astral plane.
Oh yeah,
there's a huge time distortion between the prime material and the astral plane. Huge.
That confused me so bad for a while.
Yeah, you could hang out there for a day and like decades pass on the prime material.
Well, what I finally figured out was that the main idea behind that was to maybe put something there as a way of keeping it in stasis. So it's not so much about going and doing too much adventuring on the astral plane and coming back and having it be years later, so much as it is from a game terms, it's a convenient way to maybe put a character into the astral plane so that they don't die from poison or something.
Well, I got a question about the plane of time. Is there an anti-time plane? Since there's time, is there an anti-time?
Well, that's like saying there's width. Is there anti-width?
There's positive, negative material planes.
It'd be hard enough for me to put a plane of time into my
I know.
game.
It'd be. I don't know how I'd do it either.
There's not a
so in other words, to our listener, make it up.
Yeah. Or if Jeff Grubb is listening, write in.
Yeah.
You know what, Philip T? Write
something.
a good description of the plane of time, and we will consider it canon.
There you go.
Jason making canon. Uh-oh.
I can't make canon.
No.
But we'll read it on the air.
Yeah.
I shot a cannon.
Nice, Nick.
As canon as anything in Dragon Magazine was.
Yes.
There you go.
Excellent.
We are like the Dragon Magazine of our time.
Oh, Kim Mohan is going to have words with us.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Actually, I wish he would. Kim Mohan, come on our show.
He doesn't even play it anymore. He doesn't even do anything with the industry as far as I know.
It's funny, I just friended him on Facebook the other day, too.
Oh, cool.
So I'll ask him to come on the show.
Kim Mohan, come on our show.
Yeah.
Hi, Kim.
All right.
All right, so the next email, I should say, comes from John. Hi, John. He says, howdy, gents. I was wondering what your take on the Wilderness Survival Guide or the Dungeoneering Survival Guide was. Do you use any of this info in your campaigns? Do you find any value in the non-weapon proficiencies? No. They seem to be very rule-heavy, and I just wanted to get all your takes on these books. Thanks, all. I'm loving all your podcasts. Long live First Edition! Sorry.
Well, some of this we're going to give our takes in a later segment on this show today, I think.
Mm-hmm. So we're not going to answer your email right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go into too much of it because we are going to talk about the Wilderness Survival Guide as we talk about swimming later. But I think pick and choose. If there's something in there that makes it easy, I treat them like Dragon magazines, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to the fact that they exist, and I can go to them if I need help in trying to figure out how to resolve a situation. But I don't consider them AD&D rules in the sense that I don't consider them first edition rules.
Mm-hmm. I have both the Wilderness and Dungeoneer Survival Guides, and honestly, they both came out, I think, in '86, which is you're kind of going on the twilight of first edition AD&D here.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I got my Wilderness Survival Guides here and it's like almost in perfect condition, which means one of the least used of my books. But you know what? No. I think I'm going to revisit these books. I'm going to look through them again and see what I think about them. I do recall the Dungeoneer Survival Guide has some excellent takes on the Underdark in general. And I think it'd be a real good reference for that if you want to create a complete Underdark campaign setting for yourself. I think it has some pretty good guidelines in there for you. So overall, I think they're an okay reference. But like Jason said, pick and choose. Use what you want.
Well, first of all, it's I don't know why, but I just hate the word Underdark.
Really?
I don't know why that is.
It just Netherdeep.
Yeah, right? It kind of feels to me like words like sellswords, and it just feels like some kind of computer game word.
Hey, that's the name of my group, the Burning River Sellswords.
I know it is, but sellswords sounds like a computery thing to me. I don't know why. But 1986, so it's post Gary Gygax, and I didn't realize, but Kim Mohan did write the Wilderness Survival Guide, since I'm looking at it here. So that explains why I think of it as a Dragon magazine, I guess. But yeah, it's great stuff. You can go to it, but if you can see all of the beginnings of later editions of the game in here, where they start taking away from the DM's ability to adjudicate and starting to put a lot of mechanics around things that
just
I think
kind of rule on the fly stuff. It starts to disappear here.
There's a lot about them that feels like they were written because TSR needed to raise some funds.
Yeah, towards the end of
really? You think that?
Yeah.
I mean, I love all the I love having the books. They're actually pretty fun to read.
Yeah.
About using them.
All right, we'll talk about more about that later. So
yeah.
Nick, next one.
Yes. Our last one here in Sage Advice is from a renegade folk hero.
Nice.
And a renegade folk hero talks about like adding certain types of flavor and ambiance to his or her game. And he says one way that I'd like to add flavor, kind of tongue-in-cheek there, is by describing what the characters can eat at the inn. It goes a long way to developing the character of the location, since these inns and taverns wouldn't have refrigeration, which makes perfect sense to me. They'd only have a couple of things on the menu. What's new today, whatever they made from yesterday's leftovers. Players get a very different impression from the Frontier Inn that serves venison steak or spicy rabbit stew, the Country Inn with porridge and bacon or cheese and sausage, or the Port Town with seared halibut or fish soup. So that's pretty cool ideas there, Renegade Folk Hero. I mean, what do you think? Do you add those little kind of things into your campaign, just like what's on the menu that kind of gives an idea of place, of setting?
I'm
what about
so
you,
hungry
Greg?
right now. I want
rabbit
cheese
stew.
I want a cheese and sausage pie or whatever. Actually, I can have one. There's a place right up here called Myers of Keswick that has exactly that. I'll see you guys later.
Hey,
okay.
Jason, get back here.
You know what? That's probably why I don't mention these things in the game, because I get too hungry.
I don't really go into that much detail with the inns as far as that is concerned. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should.
Sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike?
I do it from time to time. I'm lucky enough. I have like a little list of things that are already built. Like I GM Hackmaster, but you can use it for first edition or any other edition. I know on the GM screen there's like a list of I think all different foods that you can have at an inn, and you can randomly roll them up or just pick and choose right there. So, yeah, I mean, whatever makes sense. I mean, yeah. So,
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
Come
on, Mike, speak up.
Yeah, Mike.
I can't get a word in edgewise. At times I do, not for every single tavern they ever visit, unless a character specifically asks. But yeah, I mean, mentioning some of those things, especially when it makes it different from a meal we eat today. For instance, I think as he pointed out in his letter, most breakfasts were last night's leftovers. They weren't generally eggs, bacon, and pancakes and, Waffle House stuff.
Ooh, I like Waffle House.
Waffle
On the other hand, that list you were mentioning, Nick, sounds potentially useful. But what if you roll up salmon in a desert oasis or something? I mean,
imported.
There you go.
Imported, yeah. Oh, a good way to relieve your PCs of their cash, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, and that'll be very expensive. But I think it's really cool. It adds a little bit of ambiance to the game. So, if you can work those sorts of things in. I mean, like some general things like they're saying for breakfast is yesterday's leftovers and maybe made some sort of pie or a pastry. Porridge would be rather common. Something like cream of wheat or oatmeal.
Yeah, in most temperate areas.
Yeah. For lunches, I would envision things like maybe a lot of cured meats, sausages, cheeses, and for if you're talking for a heavier fare during your dinner hours, you're probably talking things like venison or whatever is the closest type of big game that you can get, or whatever livestock might be available in the area, or if you're in a seaport town, like seafood.
I mean, if you're playing a medieval type of campaign, wouldn't there be a lot less meat than that available? That was always kind of my understanding, is that it was more of a 2 or 3 times a week kind of thing.
Your average peasant didn't get meat very often at all.
Not often, maybe. And if they did, they from my recollections, if you're talking peasants, they would try to stretch it out as much as they could. They would probably put the meat in a stew or some sort of soup, because one, you can it'll stretch to the week longer, and two, it'll preserve it longer if it's mixed in with other things, and if you're lucky enough to have salt, because most of those meats are going to be cured anyway. So yeah,
turnips and cabbages. Turnips and cabbages.
Lots of tubers. Yeah, lots of tubers. Cabbages, turnips, radishes.
So conversely, most of the adventuring PCs would be of a different class from a
Sure, they'd be more well-to-do, absolutely.
Yeah.
They'd be a little bit better off than your average peasant or serf. So, yeah.
At least high enough to be allowed to travel from place to place.
Right. But depending on what region you go to, it depends on the wealth of the region. If you're going to go into a relatively, a village that's relatively less on the well-to-do, you're probably going to find a lot more things like cabbage stew or beet soup or lots of barley.
So there you go. In game terms, taking this into game terms, there's one way for your PCs to gain the trust and admiration of the local townsfolk by bringing them some better food than they're used to eating.
Yeah, you know what? That would be a good role-playing situation, absolutely.
And hope
Not
that you didn't mess
stuff.
up. Don't bring them. Here, I brought you some Umber Hulk stew.
Crack
But
them
yeah,
open. The inside's good eating.
Don't bring meat that's gone spoiled, because then there's another role-playing opportunity. You've just caused 3 of the peasants to get food poisoning.
Or you could just totally go against that and have a cleric with great food and water, and there you go.
But that doesn't mean good food.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, basically creating something that may be nutritious, but hardly enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like the what was it called? The Neutromatic on the Hitchhike on the Heart of Gold.
Yes.
Okay, I also got 4 emails to the email box telling us where they heard about the show, because you had asked last time, Jason.
Oh,
Nice.
Every one of them said, found you on iTunes.
Very cool. Well,
That was,
thanks, iTunes.
Definitely. Most people said
I did notice that when I went and searched for Dungeons and Dragons on iTunes the other day, that we came up in the top results, so that was nice.
One of them actually said we were featured on the front page, and that's how he saw us.
Even better.
and that's how it should be.
That's right. And actually, I have one question more. This is a late one from the show notes. Lon writes in and asks about training and the cost of training, and he's wondering, he kind of finds it a nuisance, because in the middle of a dungeon, when someone levels up, they had to race all the way back to town just so they could
That's right.
level up. He said, is there a way you can get around this? I mean, is there something you can do? And I told him that what you could do is you can give them the hit points for leveling up, but everything else, wait until they get into town.
I wouldn't even give them the hit points.
No?
No way. That's part of the point of first edition, is that leveling doesn't go pop, and it's just, hey, I feel stronger.
Well,
you gotta go do your training.
I would still give them the hit points at least. I mean, because that's not kind of a natural thing.
No, the hit points don't come from being stronger. They come from being better at dodging blows.
Well, I would think being out on the wilderness by yourself or a dungeon fighting, that would consider you to be doing the same thing as standing in a training facility.
No, to me it's all part of the same package. You want to level up, you go see your master or your mentor or your trainer or whatever method you have of doing it. Even if you found a way to train level up by yourself, you still have to put the time in.
It's suddenly point and counterpoint here on Roll for Initiative.
That's why Roll for Initiative is called Crossfire.
I mean, Mike, give me an OD&D perspective on this.
I always got the feeling from first edition. I don't use training, because the idea of the barbarian having to go to barbarian school before he can be barbarian, it's kind of lame. But I understand.
Pipe down in the back, you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Break that magic item now.
I was fortunately able to talk to Gary Gygax about this before his death. One of the things that and damage to larger and smaller and man-sized creatures we had to talk about. But anyway, the way he put it is, it was predominantly there to get rid of treasure.
Yeah.
Fair.
And I could see that. I do think there is a value, because it's not so bad in OD&D, but in 1E, it can be pretty soon. You've got characters walking around with bags and bags and bags of gold. You got to do something with that.
It's like 1,500 gold pieces per level, right? And it's so like if you go up the third level, it'd be 1,500 times 3, and that's how much your training cost is, correct?
Is it the same for every class?
It depends.
I believe so. I thought it was.
I don't know. I don't use it.
we went over this in an earlier podcast, because I remember I found it in the book, and Jason, you were like, "This is so cool! I should start using it." But it all depends on how you grade the player. So,
you're talking about the grading of the player part. Yeah.
But that increases the price for training. So, so it's not. It might not be the same thing for everybody. So.
A reasonable compromise I heard about doing this once was that you can still advance if you don't train, but you don't advance until you get the XP to be in the middle of the level rather than at the beginning of the level.
Yeah, actually,
and I think if you had to use training, that would probably be a good way of doing it.
Yeah,
because you don't have to, but it encourages the players to invest in the training.
I guess I kind of like it as a way of grounding them back in whatever home base they have, keeping their relationships going with people with NPCs outside of the party. To me, it adds an extra layer of kind of realism to the game, if that's what you want to use.
Yeah, I've always used as a baseline GP value of 1,500 gold, per level number of the class that you're going up. Like, a 5th level fighter, 5 times 1,500, whatever that would may be, and that's how many gold pieces that you need to spend when you go up to 5th level. So that's how I always did it. There was an article
in Dragon 40, I think it was, which basically gave a system that I try to use in my games, which is basically you get XP for monsters, but you only get XP for treasure when you spend it. Mm-hmm. And I try to rationalize that into how, to training. You don't get training per se, but you spend your money getting better stuff, better gear. The inevitable Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, or Conan, Wine, Women, and Song, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And that acts as a good gold sink.
Yeah.
Magic users invest in research equipment, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
But I always preferred that to training, but,
Okay. So if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at what, Nick?
At what, Nick?
At whatnick.com, or
you tell them. I always forget.
rfistaff@gmail.com.
rfistaff@gmail.com. Okay.
Or you can call us at 570-865-4210, the hotline. And during the show, we got another voicemail, as I just was watching it come in. So we've got 3 people entering the contest now.
Wow.
Great.
So give us a call. Let us know what's going on. Go to the website, rfipodcast.com, or go to Dragon's Foot. Comment there in the forums. We have a sub-forum. We like to hear from you. And let's head out of here into Table Manners.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I had to find one with table manners.
What, are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
All right. Table manners this week. We're going to talk about water combat or underwater combat. How to fight when you're soaking wet. Or more broadly, maybe a little bit about waterborne adventures and underwater adventures too. So,
waterboard adventures?
Waterborne.
Oh, okay.
Waterboard.
Gotcha.
Well, never know.
Yes. Anywho, so I guess a few references, everybody out there listening in RFI land, that you can draw upon is you can go to the Dungeon Master's Guide, starting on page 53. It talks about waterborne adventures, and or the Wilderness Survival Guide. And I believe that starts on page 41 in there. So I don't know anybody have some tips on running water combat?
Turn the faucet on.
Water adventures, underwater adventures. Vince, you got anything?
For underwater combat?
Either underwater combat, underwater.
Well, one more resource that you can go to, going back to the Dragon magazines, if you can get a hold of Dragon number 48.
Oh.
Whether you're getting it through the CD collection or if you can pick up a copy, there's a great section in there called Take the Plunge, Underwater Adventuring. And it's got a series of, it's got a nice little Dragon's Bestiary of some good creatures that you might encounter, like Water Horse and Sea Demon and Golden Ammonite. I can't pronounce it. They got a bunch of undersea magic items in there and a lot of good talk and thinking about what is it, why are there are even villages near the ocean if there's all these underwater sea folk that can just come out and, just rampage the area. How does that actually work out? So there's a lot of good things to read in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay.
But yeah, so taking the actual adjudicating of underwater adventures, and you've got a lot of different options. You can just go to the Dungeon Master's Guide, like you said, start with what are some basic common sense rules, such as you can't swim if you've got armor on.
Unless it's magical.
Right, and even if it's magical, you're going to be encumbered, so the
Right.
best you can do is dog paddle. And, there's in there, it's got the 5% chance of drowning per hour and all those things. And my favorite bit in the Dungeon Master's Guide is that a dagger can be carried between the teeth.
You read that too.
Yeah.
That's total pirate right there. Yar.
That's very Edgar Rice Burroughs.
You also have to take into account the fact if you jump in the water with your armor that it may rust.
Well, it's going to rust with you in it at the bottom of the ocean.
Well, if you say those people like, aha, I insist on going in the water, fine, you start sinking, say you make your way out, now what about your armor that may rust now from the seawater?
I had something like this happen in our Skype game. One of the players got caught up in a kind of a classic Indiana Jones type of trap that rushed him down a corridor and shoved him out of a cliff and threw him into a river. And he was wearing his chainmail at the time.
Uh-oh.
And he needed to get out of that chainmail because he couldn't swim to get to the edge. And we just used some kind of hastily hastily decided dexterity type checks. I think I made him do like a 5d6 dexterity for each step of getting out of the chainmail, and had him having trouble breathing as it went on, and he managed to beat it enough to get out of the armor and swim to shore, losing his armor in the process.
Oh.
But then if you go to the Wilderness Survival Guide, then all of a sudden you got rules, and you've got more things about that. And this goes to what that one listener asked earlier, right?
Yeah.
The value of the Wilderness and Dungeoneer Survival Guides, yeah.
So, all right, so I got a question for you guys right off the bat. If you're going to use the Wilderness Survival Guide, first thing it says about swimming in there is you've got to have the non-weapon proficiency swimming.
Right.
What do you think of that?
Well, I don't really use non-weapon proficiencies, to be honest.
So it's a non-issue for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that some PCs should be unable to swim?
Depending on their backgrounds.
Yeah, I would go with background. Yeah. Well, you have those background skills that you get from the secondary skills, I think it is, from the Dungeon Master Guide. And obviously if someone rolls up like fishing or maybe harvesting from the water or whatever, those ones with the water, obviously the person might know how to swim.
Someone has like the sailor background obviously is going to swim.
But like a lumberjack, I would say no. Or like a blacksmith, no,
there's no reason a blacksmith can't swim.
See, I've always had in this idea that for some reason I never thought that dwarves were very good swimmers. I don't know why that is the case, but dwarves as a race. Yeah, I always
short. They're dense bodily. Their body is dense mass. I would think it would be very difficult for them to dog paddle for any extended amount of time.
Yeah, I've always pictured them as a race. Yeah, I always pictured them as a race as not very good swimmers. So,
well, I mean, Michael Phelps looks more like what you'd think of as an elf than a dwarf, I guess.
True.
If you're going with those things. Yeah, I don't know. It probably doesn't say anywhere, but I think it makes perfect sense for you to decide in your game that a dwarf might not be a good swimmer.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you do it in the beginning of your campaign if you know you're going to have water combat in your campaign or whatever, or ship-to-ship combat? Say when your players are making up characters, roll 50%, roll percentile. Let's see if your character knew how to swim in his life, or something like that.
Yeah, or at least know how to dog paddle, for goodness sake.
Well, yeah, tread water, or whatever.
That goes. It speaks well to the point of having your players come up with some backstory at the beginning of the campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And it could just be, if you look through the backstory and it makes sense, like you said, for this character to know how to swim, then they can. And even if you're using the Wilderness Survival Guide and you're using the non-weapon proficiencies, making a player give up one of their proficiency slots for something that they could pretty reasonably just everybody in their town would know how to do doesn't make any sense. I'd give it to them even if I was using those.
Yeah.
If it made sense with their background.
Yeah.
So then, all right, so maybe you use proficiencies, maybe you don't. I don't like them either. The reason I just don't like them is because it starts turning it into a different type of a game. And, rope use. Really? You need to roll for rope use?
No.
Just
Cheese making.
cheese making, now that's
I
important.
have seen the cheese making. And like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, here's the thing where I do like the Wilderness Survival Guide for this, and that's the endurance issue. Because in the Dungeon Master's Guide, this idea that you've got a 5% chance of drowning per hour, it doesn't even say that it's cumulative. So I don't, as much as you're playing a hero and everything else, the idea that your character is just going to be out there swimming for 20 hours without any increased chance of drowning is not common sense. And if you're going to look for a way to figure it, I think that endurance is a pretty good one. So it says in here that you've got your swimming endurance, which is your total number of experience levels plus your constitution score. And that's the number of turns that the player can swim for. I mean, that the character can swim for.
But where do levels play into it?
Yeah.
I got a 20th level magic user, so I'm awesome at swimming. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that doesn't make as much sense. I mean, I get the idea that maybe a character that's more experienced has built up their endurance to a point. I don't know, maybe you... I think a 20th level anything should be better at things in general than a first level anything.
True, but plus 20?
Well, it's an extra 10 minutes for every level.
Yeah, true.
I mean, you can cut it off at some point. You maybe you cut it off at 8th level.
Yeah, because
I've always just used
3 extra hours.
I've always just used the player character's con is how long they could swim. You know, if you got a 10 con, you could swim for 10 turns.
Yeah, and that's plenty of time. I mean, that's
plenty of time.
An hour and a half or something like that.
If you're not out of the water by then, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't start drowning right then anyway. So it actually says that you start having I forget where it is in here, but basically you start having a chance of getting tired and drowning after you've reached your endurance level. And if you want to go really fast, it takes 90% off of your total endurance. So it's nice having that. I like having the speeds that are actually explained in here because I didn't know how fast people should swim before looking in here, and it basically drops down to I think about a third of walking speed. Well,
now I'm going to open up a big can of worms here.
Yeah,
and we're talking about unencumbered.
Yeah,
if you're encumbered, you're not swimming.
If you're encumbered, it's you're going to factor in things. Does this person have a backpack full of gold, carrying a pole arm, and has a great helm on his head, and is wearing scale mail?
That character's drowning.
That character is probably, he's walking on the bottom at best. So
if he's got a helm of underwater breathing, is it a helm or a ring or whatever?
It could be.
Yeah, walking on the bottom is as best as he's going to do.
Probably.
Drowning's the worst he's going to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that issue of Dragon that I mentioned, one of those
side effects of drowning is death, from what I heard.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
That issue, and I don't have CPR in my campaign. I don't know about you.
No.
Yeah, you do. I've listened to your campaign. You have something similar to CPR, though.
Yeah, they did bind some wounds.
He's dead.
But
he's dead, Jim.
If you go back to that issue of Dragon Magazine, what was kind of cool is they were talking about, what would like the Sawagin, or however you pronounce it, actually be fighting? What would they actually be fighting with? Do they have metal? No, because it rusts.
Yeah.
So they're using a much more primitive, what do you call it? Technology. In this article, he says they're basically at sort of late Neolithic technology. And it just gets to the whole thing of what they were trying to do in the article was say why the sea folk who are so tough and vicious are not going to just overrun the people on the land. And one reason is they don't carry a lot of stuff with them. The most they're ever going to have them carrying is a net or a dagger or maybe some type of a spear or trident.
Right. Good example on the Sahuagin, because I did a few years back, I did that whole campaign, the Salt Marsh series of modules, which, on a side note, probably some of the best series ever done by TSRs, starting off a campaign by far. And, the Sahuagin is a good example of a race where that's how they're pronounced. It's pronounced Sahuagin.
There's two ways. Sahuagin is also right.
Yeah.
Didn't Jeff Grubb say it was Sahoygan?
Yeah, he did.
See, there you go. What do you do about that?
Yeah.
Sounds very Yiddish.
That's how Jeff said it was.
It's Sahuagin.
Sahuagin.
He's
It's like Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Perfect.
Sheboygan. Okay.
I just looked it up on Wikipedia, and I'm seeing Jimmy Wales again.
How about we'll just call them fishmen?
There we go.
So the fish people.
Oh, the
Sea Devils.
Sea Devils, the fish guys.
Sags.
Wow, watch the wording.
Hey.
So the sags were saying.
So what
Screen
how
Actors
it was
Guild.
written in the module is like, for example, like the treasure that you would find a lot of stuff that were obviously a lot of gems, a lot of very rare kind of corals, seashells. Also, if you find any coinage, a lot of it was either gold, electrum, or silver. So not a lot of other coinage, I guess.
Well,
and
coins
weapons
wouldn't really be worth much to the sea folk.
Well,
Where are they going to put them?
But they know it's a value of the people on the land, and they can use it.
Still use it for decoration or jewelry or such.
Yeah, or they can. I don't know. Use it for trade for other races that deem it as valuable.
Shiny.
Sure, maybe
Humans like it, so if we get a big pile of it, they'll come, and we got lunch.
I didn't say there was any logic. No, I didn't say there was any good logic behind it, but yeah, like the weapons, obviously, tridents, some sort of spears or javelins.
And this is going to the Dungeon Master's Guide. Nothing that you need to use to smash is going to work. The only thing,
no mass weapons.
Right.
Yeah,
especially constructed crossbows for underwater use. It's another.
Yeah, how would that even work? Like a harpoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the corals are more like a harpoon type.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the crossbow, I mean, as much as I try to think about that, I don't know what type of material you're going to be able to make that keeps tensile strength when it's living permanently underwater.
Bone?
No, I'm talking like...
No, the cord, I think he's talking about.
Right.
Copper wire, maybe? I mean, it would tarnish, but...
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
And a crossbow needs metal parts to work properly.
No.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, just like
fish cuts. Is that what you said?
You know what? It's irrelevant.
Sorry, I'm still thinking of the string.
We're talking about a game with fairies and dragons in it.
Yeah, but it doesn't get rid of the laws of physics.
Yeah, but you don't have to rationalize it. Just go with it.
No crossbows underwater.
Fine.
Well,
your game, no crossbows.
I'm making the T-shirt, and I'm going to put that on the front and on the back. It says no edged weapons for
harpoons
clerics.
do not work underwater.
Sorry, I got to back up Jason on that. It's got to have some sort of plausibility. Otherwise, you kind of lose something.
Disconnecting mic. Sorry. Not even really.
There's magic. Maybe it's magically enhanced. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's valid.
So
maybe a spell of some kind.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Maybe there's. I remember in that.
Maintain crossbow.
Now I remember in the Saltmarsh series, for example, they to preserve certain things like scrolls and.
I was going to say, what does the Magic User's book do underwater?
There's I think it's even in DMG too that there's special resins that you can coat paper and other materials with that'll make it water resistant.
Wax?
Yeah,
For a
either
short amount of
wax.
time, yeah.
Yeah. So there are some like things for players and for GMs to throw in there too.
Bag of holding.
So
Well, a lot of it comes down to what you want to have happen in your campaign. And in my campaign, I prefer to think of underwater as not being a place of advanced civilizations and technology, but a place where it's a very wilderness kind of thing. And those sea folk that are down there, they're living in a far less technological and civilized type of a world.
Well, you're saying Atlantis isn't civilized?
Well, I mean, Atlantis is a real place. You can go there and you can check, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But
I go there all the time.
Not talking the casino.
Yeah, not talking the casino, Jason.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that I prefer in my campaign not to try to spend a lot of time twisting myself into logic puzzles, figuring out how to make a spell book stay dry and a crossbow work underwater. I prefer to just say they're attacking with spears. They're a very barbaric race.
See, I don't see that at all because I see a lot of aquatic races. Like you have aquatic elves, you have the Kuo-toa, you have the merfolk, are obviously highly advanced races that live in underwater, and they have adapted in ways. So I just think the argument's invalid. I think they would have found ways and means over many years of using either magic and innovation to make certain weapons and objects to be modified to use in an underwater setting. So,
sea monkeys build castles.
Oh, for
yeah, I'm going to side with Nick on
yes,
this one.
the ever powerful sea monkey race.
You know what? Fine, Mike. Note this: next actual play podcast, I'm going to have underwater pumpkin-headed satires that shoot crossbows underwater now.
Sweet.
Yeah, you totally trumped my argument with the sea monkeys. You won it.
Yeah,
we'll be on our board.
If you've got a bunch of people living in a fishing village by the ocean, and you've got an advanced race of intelligent, technological sea folk that are under there, the sea folk can come and attack. And what's to keep them from just running over the others, because the folks from the land can't really very well come and attack them down in the water, but the sea folk can basically keep them from getting to the fishing. They can knock their boats over. You need to have some balance, and I think that comes from giving them less technology.
I disagree.
That's a plausible argument.
Yeah, I'm disagreeing on that too. Sorry.
Because the equalizing factor is magic.
Yeah.
It's just magic.
It's just magic.
You tell that to the group of merfolk who come on out of water on the land, they get hit with a 20 dice fireball.
Sure, yeah, on land, but if you can't get your ships into the sea to go fishing, and you're a fishing village, what are you going to do?
Call adventurers.
Thank you.
There you go. Call the adventurers.
Adventurers have what?
Magic.
Illusion.
Big, shiny weapons.
That too.
That rust.
Yes. Or just invent the first U-boat. I don't know.
Anyway, let's move on before we start throwing tridents at each other. Ship versus ship combat. So this is one I think I've only encountered maybe a couple of times in my whole gaming career. Once, that one very first AD&D RPG tournament I went to way back in 1980.
What was that, Nick?
Back when Reagan was president.
Ooh.
And I think with the Salt Marsh campaign, there was a little bit of ship-to-ship combat. Actually, ship to
rowboat action.
Ship to octopus attack. Let's put it that way.
Ship to rowboat action.
Now there was a ship versus an octopus, and the thief got in a taffy pole. Not cute. not good.
Uh-huh.
So, Jason, what about ship-to-ship combat? Have you looked at this?
I've never run it.
Yeah, I've never really run it either.
It's basically when you start getting to ship-to-ship combat, from what I've read in the rules, you're getting into a wargaming kind of environment. And
yeah, you
could go with what's in there. There's probably – I've never played any water-based war games, but I mean, there must be as many different ways to run that as there are people who have wanted to run it. So anything you can come up with, go for it.
It does look like in the rules, like you're saying, it really goes back to those wargaming roots with hull points and
well, this kind of gets to one of my degrees, but unless you
have a degree in war and shipboard and combat,
my PhD is in maritime history.
Sweet,
or will be whenever I get my dissertation finished. But anyway, unless you're going to have a high magic campaign or cannons, most or virtually all ship-to-ship combat is going to be simply boarding actions.
Yeah,
you're
pretty much.
Corvuses, ropes, and it's going to be a melee.
And at the most, any ship-to-ship is going to be ramming.
Exactly. And then you have to deal with the because no ships, especially wooden ships, don't sink immediately.
No.
It takes a while. And, of course, when you ram them, unless you can reverse and pull your ram out quick enough, you're going to have their crew on your ship.
Or you're going to go down with them, too.
That, too, yes.
So did ramming, was that actually a common tactic?
Oh, yes. Yeah. The Greeks were really good at it. Mm-hmm. Especially when they ram you and they, toss Greek fire onto your ship.
Okay, so there we go, you guys. Greek fire and the big mirror that they tried to do in Mythbusters. Give me your take on those.
The big mirror?
I think, what was it, Archimedes' mirror or something like that?
Oh, yeah. The heat ray thing you were talking about.
Well, the problem with Greek fire, as with any fire, is your ship is just as flammable. I mean, there's so much tar being used to seal leaks and such that you got to be very careful. It's going to be very difficult to just burn the enemy. Unless, of course, you've got something like the Greek with the bronze dragon heads.
Yeah,
right.
On the front, specifically with billows to spray, because then you've got the metal mounting around it to theoretically prevent it from setting your ship.
And if you treated your ship with a real heavy duty lacquer that is flame resistant, but even then, there's no guarantees. So,
and Greek fire, water tends to just spread it. So sand or urine to put it out.
Pee.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then again, we're
collected buckets for a battle.
But taking it to the next level, what kind of trumps all of this is, again, magic. Yeah. You have the availability of magic, of various spells that can counter this stuff or be used in ship-to-ship combat. So when you factor in the AD&D magic system with ship-to-ship combat, you could almost have a situation to where it is very similar to what you would have, what we would think of ship-to-ship combat. Because you might have magic users or other people with wands of fireballs and
well, that's why I mentioned either high magic or cannons, because you're right, like you say, with if a high magic campaign, you've got wizards as regular crew on the ship with fireballs, then it might as well be cannonades.
Yeah, it puts it into a whole new dimension. But historically speaking, it was ship-to-ship combat, very rare, like you were saying.
So here's a question for you with high magic and ship-to-ship combat and things like that, because I've definitely had players try this before and I didn't know what to do, really. You're going to try to use a spell that affects a certain amount of water, and if they've got a high enough level to make it enough, whether it's freezing it or turning it into a gaseous form or just dispel water, what do you do?
Oh.
Depends on what they're trying to do with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just wondering, have you run into situations where I was trying to look up the spell quickly, what I was thinking of that would freeze a large amount of water? I mean, dispel water is
my wife once had her character use a wand of frost, or use a cone of cold, basically, to freeze the back ship. Yeah. But, of course, ice is buoyant, too, so, if you're trying to sink them, now you can freeze up their rudder or the oars to prevent them perhaps from chasing you, but it's not going to sink it.
Well, what about, okay, let's say create water, if you can create enough of it inside the ship itself to change its buoyancy.
Yeah.
That could be a factor, definitely.
Well, my
Especially
trouble is I don't know how ship buoyancy works. I don't know enough about it to make a decision on the fly.
If you could create enough water inside to overload the bilges, you could. I mean, it wouldn't completely sink, but basically it would ride very low with the water, and you wouldn't be going anywhere in it.
Yeah, you could at least make the ship to the point to where it's going to capsize. And
what are bilges?
Maneuver barrel.
What are bilges? How does that work?
Bilges are trenches inside the hold, which are basically cut there so that any leaks, the water collects into those areas, and it's kind of like it's almost like a gutter on a roof.
Yeah.
And but it's to compensate for small leaks and keep water from getting directly into the woodwork until you have a chance to get over there and get it.
Basically it channels the water into an area to where it will hopefully not affect the ship.
Yeah, because it's spread out evenly because of the railing.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I just found the spell I was thinking of. This is what it was. It was Autoluke's Freezing Sphere.
Oh, that's a nasty one.
Which actually creates a globe of matter at absolute zero. Which, okay, back to the physics.
I think we talked about this once before.
Didn't we? I mean,
yeah.
Absolute zero can't even exist, but let's pretend it could. What do you do with the physics on that one when you put it next to a ship?
Well, that's magic. We're not worried about that.
Drag around a black hole and spheres of annihilation. Why not?
Yeah, sure. What the heck? We'll let them exist for that reason. But what do you do with it?
What, the freezing sphere or the...
Well, I mean, the freezing sphere. I mean, if you create a sphere of absolute zero, I think that could have some effects on the integrity of the hull itself, couldn't it?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, if you hit absolute zero, then you're going to have matter shattering, particularly even wood.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other spells that could have effects on a ship, like, I was just looking one up now, part water. So if you part the water enough, it would be sort of like hitting a massive wave because the ship would drop a certain amount.
Yeah, it would.
So I don't know what the rules are around AD&D as far as what happens when you enter a huge storm and the ship starts getting tossed side to side. How does that affect its hull points and things like that?
Or how about if you take an illusionist and get the illusion of the ship sinking?
Oh, gee. Yeah. Does everybody have to
get the crew to leave?
Well, yeah, you probably would do a massive save for people, but still, that's still many people jumping off the ship, too.
Uh-huh.
So nothing else that causes chaos, because everybody's going, well, it doesn't look like it's sinking, but do I really want to hang around?
Well, I guess this is like where we're getting into what spells would have odd effects in a water combat or waterborne campaign. So
luckily,
those are some good examples. One of the things that I disagree with in the DMG that says they would not function underwater is animal summoning. Mm-hmm. I think it would work. You would just summon aquatic animals. It would be like Aquaman, the lamest comic book hero ever, but...
Hey, he's sensitive to that. Watch it, pal.
I don't care. He's Aqua.
I don't know. I like the hero Human Man from Tom the Dancing Bug. Yes, he has the speed of a single man.
Nice. Anywho, but I just think animal summoning
probably a reason animal summoning doesn't work other than just the fact that the animals aren't there.
Well, I'm sorry, there's no whales and fish and...
No, I don't know. I'm actually trying to look it up right now and see if it makes any sense to me.
I would think it would work. I don't know why. I
would think it would work too. Yeah, I mean, whales and...
Why couldn't you summon like a school of barracuda?
You'd think so,
Well,
right?
unless it specifically just summons mammals. Even then, you could get dolphins and whales.
Dolphins and whales, seals, otters. I don't know.
It's annoying. I don't see what the material component is for it. It might just be one of those things where the somatic, you could say that maybe the somatics are not as easy to do when you're underwater or something. Like that.
Wow.
Well, definitely call woodland beings. I can understand why that one doesn't work.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
Wall of fire, that makes sense.
Obviously, fireball wouldn't work.
Yeah, fireball. I mean, these are underwater, of course, not from the surface. But
lightning
meteor
bolt.
swarm.
What about lightning bolt underwater?
Lightning bolt. Oh, it does.
It'll work all right.
It'll work, but the problem is it works as a fireball, and it takes the form of a 2-inch radius sphere, so 20 feet, centering on the point where the stroke would originate, where the spell cast above water, where the cast spell above water. So not good.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I my physics are pretty lousy, but I would assume that electrical conductivity dissipates underwater at a certain point. Otherwise, every time you dropped a toaster in the ocean, the whole place would go.
Seawater is an excellent conductor.
Yeah.
Trust me on this.
Luckily, I've never tested that theory personally.
I don't want to know, Nick.
I was an electronics and electrical technician in the Navy, and that's just one of those things. Conductivity. Now, pure water in itself is not a very conductor, but like seawater or lake water that's not filtered or anything like that is an excellent conductor of electricity because of all the impurities.
Okay, cool.
Like adventurers.
That too.
So what other spells do we have that have some odd effects underwater, you think?
Well, I mean, the list is in here. Anything, a lot of things to do with fire. When you're talking about weather, it's a pretty common sense thing, except for what you just pointed out about animal summoning, which, like you said, you should be able to at least summon. What do you call those things? Whales, right?
Whales, yeah.
And speak with plants. Why wouldn't that work? Why can't you talk to the seaweed?
Because
I know.
What is seaweed going to really tell you?
What's a plant going to really tell you?
Glub, it's very wet down here.
Right. You know what? There's another good one. Dragon Magazine that I found, it was like 32. There was a section in there on megaflora. And
sounds like a transformer.
Yeah, right. The author came up with this idea for megaflora, which basically look like underwater evergreen trees and produce oxygen and create these sort of bubbles of air near the edge, basically as a way to create some more opportunity for underwater adventuring for low-level characters. And then what do you do when you're in this big oxygen bubble, and how that can affect your health as you breathe pure oxygen and light a torch. But yeah, so the megaflora are in issue 32, so that's a pretty interesting underwater plant that could help you.
There's a lot of aquatic monsters in the monster manual that don't get much use.
Wow.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't spend enough time underwater.
You're talking about the water bubbles. I was thinking about those aquatic spiders who actually make layers. They web up a air bubble.
Remind me, where are they at? I don't remember them.
Oof, I don't know the page number. I just know
do you know which book they're in? I'm going to try to look.
Yeah, they're in Monster Manual.
Oh, I just was looking in the wrong place.
There's quite a few in there, yeah.
Yeah, the Morkoth I've never actually used, but I always thought that would be kind of cool.
Ooh,
Eye of the Deep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, great nests of air. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that, and that immediately sprung to mind.
Yeah, I like that. I like all those opportunities to make places that the adventurers can have a little bit of survival underwater.
Just enough to give them a slight bit of hope before you dash them.
Right. I just like the idea of the first adventurer to light his torch while in the air bubble.
We see that's when you use the freezing sphere. Once it's at
yes.
absolute zero, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, you're fine at absolute zero.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
So anyway, why don't we head over into Creature Feature Theater?
Creature Theater.
All right, so we're in the Creature Feature Theater this week, and we have a monster from last week because we had a guest DM, Stephen, how was that pronounced, Jason? McClanahan. And he gave us an interesting monster that we had to fight, the Adherer. It is from the Fiend Folio on page 9, if you flip it open and take a look at it. Another comment I wanted to say about this, a lot of people have been saying that we get most of our monsters from Creature Feature from the Fiend Folio. Have you noticed the trend of that?
Interesting. Great source.
Yeah, I think because they're just most unfamiliar to people.
Yeah. They said other than me, because I got most of the ones I had from Monster Manual and Oriental Adventure, that mostly everybody was using Fiend Folio.
I used the Lucrata. That was out of the Monster Manual.
That's true, yeah.
Well, we'll try to look for some more sources. I'll start digging through some of the Dragon's Bestiaries from the magazine.
Ooh, good idea. Me too. I'll start
Monster
doing
Manual
that.
2.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go.
I like Monster Manual too, yeah.
I think it's a lot lamer than Fiend Folio, that's for sure.
Monster Manual 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Now
it's really the weakest of the three. I mean, it's still good, but I mean...
And I used to have the exact reverse opinion when the books came out. I did not like Fiend Folio, but it's really grown on me over the years.
I've always liked it, yeah.
No, I agree, and honestly, it wasn't until we started doing the show, and I forget who it was that wrote in to defend the Fiend Folio, and I took another look and said, he is right.
There's some good stuff in there.
Didn't Todd write a big long article on the Fiend Folio? That's
but I mean, the Monster Manual 2 has an entire half page devoted to a cat.
Yeah.
The house cat gets half a page.
Hey, he's important, all right?
Ask house cats, they'll think they deserve a whole page.
So the Adherer.
Yes.
Jason, what do you think overall of the monster, the Adherer?
Oh, the Adherer is great because you start out and you think it's a completely different thing, first of all, because it looks like a zombie, or a mummy. And they're not that tough until you realize that they've got your sword.
Give it back.
Give it back. Yeah. Give my sword back.
They're frustrating. I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ability to steal your weapon away as you try to attack and slash them, and I was really surprised at that at first. I was like, oh yeah, and then once Nick's like, I know what it was, I started getting an idea of what it was, and
yeah. Well, this is one of those creatures I would like to use in conjunction with something else for some reason.
Really?
It
like
seems
mummies?
like yeah, mix them with some regular mummies and see what happens. You know.
Well, I imagine
that would be really good.
Well, especially if they bump into each other.
Matt had a good one there. Producer Matt said, envisioning an unarmed Mike, yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Hey.
An unarmed monk fighting an Adherer.
Oh.
That would be tough.
Yeah, sticky situation. Boom, had to land that one.
Oh.
I would expect the Adherers to usually be in some sort of spider-like situation because they're very. I don't know if they're related to spiders or spider-aligned, but I would expect them like in a temple of Lolth or whatever.
That's a good point. I could see that too.
What about taking an Adherer and an Adherer that went through like a treasure room? Think about that, and he had all the gold attached to him.
Rolling through there and
yeah, roll him through the treasure room, then have him come towards the players. I mean, wouldn't that be a good idea to do that, to taunt players for gold?
It's a gold golem.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing about the Adherers is they can decide what they want to keep on and what they don't want to by the secretions of those fluids. So they could intentionally do it, or just it gives them a really good way to hide, to camouflage themselves in anything, the way that Stephen had them, in those things that looked like ghillie suits but actually turned out to just be junk stuck all over them.
I like the fact that they couldn't swim either, so I was happy about that.
That's helpful.
Yeah, they plummeted to their death in the water. And that fact that you threw those rocks on it with the knock spell, that was really inventive. I like that idea.
Well, it was good of him for DMing to let that work. So that's the thing. I didn't know what a knock spell should really do, so that worked out.
Like we always say, I mean, if you find something inventive with a spell, I mean, and it surprises the DM, I would do it.
Well, and that's one of the prime reasons that I play tabletop RPGs rather than computer RPGs, because you can actually be inventive and try something out.
Yeah, and you taking a Nox spell, not knowing exactly how it should have been used, and using it on those rocks was very inventive.
And to be honest, I would have had just as much fun if we had spent the next 30 minutes arguing about it.
Because you like arguing over things like that.
Well, that's part of the fun for me about the game, or any of the games, is that it's fun to sit down and try to figure, wait a minute, how would that work? You know? I like it. So
yeah, but I don't know. I don't want to sit there spending 30 minutes rationalizing how something works. Just do it.
No, but you got to admit for a lot of people that's a big part of the fun is the trying to sort out the rules that aren't there.
I don't know. I guess I'm more part of the OD rationale with Mike over there, but just go with it, man. Roll a dice. Go with it. The whole
What I tend to do is, if the players go, well, how did they do that? They shouldn't be able to do that. Rather than try to rationalize it, I go, yes, that is odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
And let them figure it out.
I like Frank Mentzer's idea. Just sit back, man, roll a d6. So just do it that way. Anything else we could say about this creature, really?
Yeah, this stuff sticks to him.
Yeah. All right. Well,
no, it was a lot of fun. They're great monster to run up against, and I hope that we have more guest DMs coming on, because that was a lot of fun. Stephen was really good.
Yeah, if you want to guest DM and you have a really good Skype connection and good sound, good quality of sound,
a good Quonset hut.
Yeah, that too. Give us an email at rfistaff@gmail.com and write us in and tell us, and we'll talk to you. Or hit us up on Facebook, because we can always use that.
Yep.
And let's head into our almost last segment of the night, Dragon's Horde.
The Dragon's Horde.
Here we are in the Dragon's Horde, and this week we have the Robe of the Arch-Magi. Magi.
Either way, it's pronounced the same way.
Those guys.
Yeah, those guys.
So this is a magic item that gives away a bit of its identity at first glance by looking at the color. This robe comes in colors. It comes in white, gray, and black, and those go with alignments. Can anybody guess which one is gray?
Neutral?
Yes. So first of all, I mean, I think that you should be able to have these maybe come in some other colors so that experienced players don't just get it right away. But it's a pretty great thing for a magic user, certainly, to get, because it gives you an armor equal to armor class 5 right off the bat, 5% magic resistance, adds +1 to your saving throw, and when you cast certain spells that are involved in controlling others, things like Charm Monster and Hold Person, Suggestion, and such.
Wow.
It reduces your opponent's magic resistance and or saving throws by 20%. So it makes it a lot easier to use some of those spells.
You know what I like about it is that when you put it on, it determines what color it should be. So it can kind of trick like a wizard, a magic user, to put it on, and then it'll be the DM's supposed to determine which one it is, and if he's evil and he gets a good one, he takes damage for it. Yeah,
that's the so if the evil wizard puts on the white robe, or if the good wizard puts on the black one, they'll get, it's pretty amazing amount of 11d4 plus 7 hit points of damage, lose 18 to 51,000 experience points.
Yeah.
And that's why I think maybe just going with the colors is a bit too much of a giveaway for something like that.
Well, yeah, but that's why they said it usually normally appears as white, and then...
Does it say that?
Yeah, normally.
Oh, it does. Color is not determinable until dawned. All right, I missed that part.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine then.
It's normally used as white, and then once he puts it on, it'll go blink and change to the color that's supposed to be. Kind of like a trick.
Yes, you definitely want to use your identify spells before putting...
And hilarity ensues.
I think any player who... randomly starts having their character put things on every time he finds them will soon be very used to what it's like to roll up new characters. So that's fine. So it's a very useful robe if you get the right one for your alignment. How would you guys use it?
As far as tricking,
when would you see it showing up in a campaign, and when would you see some PCs coming across this particular treasure?
How about the big bad is wearing it?
Yeah,
and after you kill him,
good point.
And after you kill him, you have those players that always loot the body. Why not loot his robes? I mean,
so if the BBG is BBEG is wearing this black robe, that when you take it off of him, does it turn white again?
I think it stay. I would rule it as it stays as black,
so that it doesn't give away too much of its.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you get that magic user puts the robe on, and then boom, you roll it up, and if it happens to stay his alignment, he's fine. But if it's not, damage time
and experience point loss.
Oh yeah.
I love that. Don't want to be too low of experience points putting that puppy on.
Throwing it back to you, Jason. How would you use it or have it show up?
I think I'd have it mixed in with some others. I think maybe one of those things that if we're not just having it being taken off of the bad guy himself, I like the idea of having it there amongst the robes, and you don't even basically, once you've determined if anything's magical, there's the magical one. You go in and get it. I think the thing about it is the alignment issue that's the most interesting to me, because it really puts you in the world of alignment as actual forces in your campaign, as opposed to just going back to things we talked about before, the difference between alignment as just the way you act and alignment as some sort of overriding forces of good, forces of evil kind of thing. So if you're playing a campaign that doesn't do the big forces of good, forces of evil version of alignment, I think you'd probably leave this out of it, because one of the things about it is that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would play it like, as far as where I would find this particular item. Yeah, the big bad guy at the end, maybe in a dragon's horde, some big nasty creature.
I think the dragon would have flamed that thing. This is not gold.
Magic item could have made it saving throw. You never know.
Maybe the dragon's wearing it.
Dragons.
I don't know. I don't see that. No.
Why does it have
I know magic stuff is supposed to modify itself to its wearer to a degree, but
why does it have to be?
That's a bit much.
Why does it have to be
so much?
Why does it have to be?
I mean, this is definitely something that would be, the very fashionable lich would wear, or vampire.
Vampire.
So.
Why the thing I haven't given enough thought to is, why particularly is it the controlling type of spells that it gives so much assistance for? Things like charm and hold person and suggestion and those types of things.
Because what would scare more a magic user more than having his body controlled by somebody else?
Or it's just a variant off the magic resistance.
Yeah, I'm saying when you're a magic user and you're using this robe, those spells become more potent when you cast them. So there's some backstory to this magic item as to why it's like that, and I'd like to hear somebody come up with that.
There we go. We'll throw that out to you in the audience. If you know the backstory of the robes, let us know.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear about it. I know Jason would.
Oh yeah, it makes it more potent. Oh, okay, I see.
It's hard when you first read it.
I thought the wearer gets a bonus to their saving throw or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But it's actually the opposite. If you're casting those spells while wearing the robe, the one who's getting nailed by that spell, like friends, they get a negative on their saving throw.
Right.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, at first I thought it just made you more susceptible to those things. And then what you said, that would scare you as a magic user, being controlled by other people. But it's one of those things where the sentence isn't written
right. Now it's
clearly.
just the opposite. It's like being a wizard or a magic user, what's more powerful than manipulating others?
Yeah.
So maybe that kind of plays into it.
Yeah. So I would definitely keep... I was going to say I would keep this very rare, but not necessarily. I mean, it's not like it has such unique powers that you should never have two robes of the Magi. Still can't pronounce it. You should still never have two robes of the Magi in one place. But
Nick,
I'd keep it, rare enough. So it's a good magic item. If anybody out there has used it in their campaign, please go on the forums and tell us how you've done it, or leave us a comment, or send us a voicemail, or an email, or air mail, or any kind of mail you want.
Pigeon carrier.
Yeah, give us a call. All those things.
Send it by hippogriff.
Please do that.
Attach it to your blunt weapon for your cleric.
Hey!
Inside an Odaluk's freezing sphere, and then roll it.
Mike, send it in an absolute zero freezing sphere to 200 East 10th Street, number 511, New York, 10003. All right, so that'll do it for the Dragon's Horde, and let's get out of here, Vince.
Let's end the show tonight on a happy note. We don't have any news or anything. No, I don't think so.
Well, just keep tuned to this channel. I'll talk about some upcoming guests on Roll for Initiative. We're going to have Ethan Gilsdorf sometime in the near future. Mm-hmm. And also this month, we're going to be having... I forgot who else we're having.
Larry Elmore.
Right. Larry Elmore.
Should be in the next couple of weeks. We'll be having an interview with Larry.
Mm-hmm. So if you have anything, if anybody has stuff they'd like to hear Larry talk about on the show, let us know, and we'll make sure that we bring those things up.
Oh, yeah, good idea on that.
Definitely.
Why do all his women have the same face?
Well, ask him that for you, Mike.
Okay. I mean, it's a nice face, but it's always the same face.
Well, you can check us out at rfipodcast.com. You can email us at rfistaff.com. I did it again. rfistaff@gmail.com. See, Nick, you're rubbing off. Yeah. 570-865-4210, or I'm not saying it the Jason way because I can't do that. 5708-54-210. And you can also listen to Mike on the Save or Die podcast every week at saveordie.info, where the latest episode was an interview with Mike Carr from back in the day of TSR.
Oh, wow, you got Mike?
Yeah, we spoke to him about B1 and history of TSR and the housing projects, all those.
Yeah, he wrote the B1 module. Wow, that's cool. Yeah. So I'll have to listen.
So it was a great little interview. Check that out. And I think we're going to sign off for tonight.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me over.
Thank you, Mike.
It's been fun.
And
it's been swell. Jason
will be on the next episode of Save or Die.
Yes. Being completely ignorant about all things OD&D.
Over on our stomping grounds. That's okay if you know 1E. You've got about 60
I might drop over there sometime myself, too. You never know.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I might come on over there. It sounds like a fun place.
Sure, Nick, you're invited as well.
And we could talk about Doctor Who.
Thanks, Vince. You sounded
so can we do the all Doctor Who episode?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just... Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite Doctor, yeah.
Actually...
Tom Baker, here we come.
We had
my long scarf and floppy hat.
We had
I've got a TARDIS USB hub sitting right here.
Really?
Sweet.
We had actually talked about doing a side adventure on Save or Die about Doctor Who, the RPG game, so...
The FASA game, yeah.
Yeah.
Except one of us would actually have to run it or play it.
I have the game.
Yeah, we do too, but we've never played it.
Oh, we'll have to do it then.
Yeah. Maybe we could do that, an actual play or something.
Yeah, enough Doctor Who. Let's...
Is there really such a thing?
I'm jumping in my Bill and Ted time booth, and I'm getting out of here. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Free Arc.
Oh.
Free Arc.
Roll for Initiative.